So my name is Deltoria Gallant, and today is August 7th, 2023, and I will be presenting for my final exam a roundtable for iTech 640 Information Technology Project Management. This roundtable discussion, I will like to take a deep dive into some of the critical components while identifying pain points or areas of the project management process where organizations tend to encounter deficiencies that create obstacles in the successful execution of projects. And with that, I will be looking at project initiation, work breakdown structure, requirements, activities, and risk management. So let's start with project initiation, which is formal recognition that a project should begin and that resources should be allocated to the project. The most critical aspect of project initiation is defining a clear and well structured project scope and objectives. This step sets the foundation for the entire project and significantly influences its success. During a Defining a clear project scope ensures that all stakeholders, including the project team, management, and clients, have a shared understanding of what the project aims to achieve. It reduces the likelihood of misunderstandings, conflict, and scope creep. This is important because projects that are initiated for many reasons, like marketing demand, business need, customer requests, technological advance, legal requirements, and social need. This can become a pain point when everyone involved in the project is not on the same page, which can cause conflict. In order to achieve the goal of a project, there needs to be a project plan. This should define the system requirements, the user requirements, um, and there are several critical components of project plan development. It's challenging to pinpoint a single most important component because the success of a project relies on the synergy of many elements. However, for the purpose of this discussion, if I were to highlight one aspect that significantly influences the entire project plan, I would say it would be the work breakdown structure. The work breakdown structure is a hierarchical decomposition of the project scope into smaller, more manageable work packages. It's considered a critical part of project plan development because it breaks down the project's deliverables into work activities and breaks those down into smaller, distinct components. It makes it easier to plan, execute, and monitor the project. It helps to ensure a clear, comprehensive understanding of the project scope. It breaks down the project into discrete tasks, makes it easier for all stakeholders to visualize and comprehend what needs to be accomplished. It provides a foundation for developing a project schedule by helping the project team to understand the sequence and dependencies of work packages. Each work package in the work breakdown structure can be assigned a specific team or members or groups. This promotes accountability and clarity about who is responsible for each task. It reduces confusion and potential gaps in ownership. The breakdown of tasks in the work breakdown structure allows for a more accurate estimation of resources, time, and costs required for each work packages. This facilitates effective resource allocation. As work packages are completed, progress is easily measured and reported. The work breakdown structure provides a framework for assessing and managing changes to the scope, and it can be evaluated in context of impact to specific work packages. The work breakdown structure is a communication tool. It facilitates stakeholder discussions about the project structure, milestones, and deliverables. So, properly executing and creating the work breakdown structure will help a project team avoid many pitfalls in executing the project management process. The next area that we're going to discuss is requirements. And this is a key to successfully executing a project because some of the common errors when it comes to requirements is are incorrect assumptions, omitted requirements, inconsistent requirements, and ambiguities. And to avoid these errors, we need to execute the four processes of requirements. And that starts with requirement planning, which is an early stage process. It takes place during the initiation phase, and it sets the stage for gathering, analyzing, and documenting project requirements. But I want to put a special focus on requirements definition, which is a process that typically occurs during the project planning phase, and it involves a detailed analysis and documentation of project requirements. And to properly execute this, the project team needs to elicit requirements, and that requires engaging stakeholders to gather detailed requirements using different techniques. They need to analyze the user needs, the business processes, and technical consideration. They need to create a detailed requirement documents, and this will include functional and non-functional and technical specifications. It requires collaboration with stakeholders so that they can prioritize requirements based on business value, importance, and feasibility. They also need to validate requirements with the stakeholders to ensure that they accurately reflect the intended scope and objectives. And also, they need to clarify any unclear or conflicting requirements by having further discussion and then obtain formal approvals. Now, after that specific process, there also needs to be requirements verification, which is an ongoing process and it spans multiple phases of the project. And then requirements change control, which is another ongoing process that runs from the project initiation through the project closure. Next, we're going to look at activity definition. This is a fundamental process in project management, and it connects with the work breakdown structure because it involves breaking down the project's work into smaller, manageable tasks. And it's typically performed during the project planning phase, and it lays the groundwork for the subsequent project management activities. And these activities are the basis for planning, scheduling, assigning resources, and tracking progress. So we do this by referencing the project's work breakdown structure and reviewing each component to identify the individual tasks or activities required to complete it. We want to break down each component into discrete actionable tasks and define each activity using clear and specific action verbs to describe what needs to be done. So, for example, instead of just saying software development, we want to specify code review and debugging. That would be an actual activity. We also, at this phase, need to determine a logical sequence and dependencies between activities by identifying which tasks must be completed before others can start. We're also going to estimate the time needed to complete each activity, which can be done based on historical data, expert judgment, or other estimation techniques. And then we also want to identify the resources required to carry out each activity and assign ownership or responsibility for each activity so that we can clearly define accountability. And next we have activity dependencies. Now this goes back to our what we discussed in activities where we want to determine a logical sequence. And there's three different types of dependencies. We have the which are critical in determining the sequence of activities. Um, we have mandatory dependencies, which are also known as hard dependencies or logical dependencies, and they're constraints that dictate a strict order of activities. These dependencies are inherent to the nature of the work being performed and is typically based on laws of physics, regulations, or technical requirements. So you really can't get around them. They're critical for maintaining the integrity and functionality of the project. They ensure that certain tasks must be completed before others can begin. And this is often due to, you know, technical reasons, safety reasons, and failure to adhere to these dependencies can result in errors, rework, the need for rework, or project failure. And an example of this would be in software development. Coding, which would be activity A, must be completed before testing or activity B can begin. Um, then you have discretionary dependencies, and those are also known as preferential dependencies or soft dependencies. They're established by the project team based on their expertise or judgment. These dependencies are often used to optimize the project schedule or resource allocation. They provide flexibility and allow the project team to sequence tasks in a way that maximizes efficiency. They are particularly useful when there are multiple ways to achieve a goal, and the project team can use the most suitable sequence. So, for example, in a web development project, the design phase, which is activity A, and the content creation phase, activity B, can occur concurrently, even though they don't have to have a strict technical dependency, is based on the discretion of the team of what they think is best. External dependencies are also known as external constraints, involve factors outside of the control of the project team, and but they impact the project schedule or execution. And these dependencies are often related to external organizations, suppliers, or regulatory bodies, and they highlight the project's reliance on external factors or entities. They require effective communication and coordination with external stakeholders to ensure that the project can progress smoothly despite external influences. So an example of this would be in a software project where you're relying on a third party's API. If there's any changes or delays to the API's development, that could affect the overall project schedule, and creating an external dependency. So overall, the proper identification and management of dependencies are vital for IT project management success. And understanding these different dependencies allow the project manager to sequence events, allocate resources, minimize risk, optimize scheduling, and communicate clearly. Next, we have, of course, risk management. And when we look at risk management, this process, which involves uh, risk management planning, risk identification, risk analysis, risk response planning, and risk monitoring and control, um, is basically when we're looking at risk to determine the probability that they will occur, the range of possible outcomes or the impact that they may have, the expected timing of these risks, and how frequently we think that these risks will occur. Um, and this is another key process that a lot of times, organizations mess up. But I want to drill down into one specific aspect of this process, which would be the risk analysis. And with risk analysis, we have two different types of, or two different methods of risk analysis. And risk analysis is a critical component of this process. It's often overlooked, and qualitative and quantitative analysis are two approaches that are used to evaluate project risk, and they have their own methodology and benefits. So with qualitative risk analysis, we're focusing on assessing the relative significance of risk based on their impact and likelihood. This involves subjective judgments and expert opinions to categorize risks and prioritize them for further action. This is done by identifying potential risks that could affect a project's objective and deliverables and timeline or budget, evaluating each identified risk based on two main factors, that's impact and likelihood, grouping risk into categories such as high, medium, low, and low based on their assessed impact and likelihood, assigning a risk rating to each risk, and this is often done by using a risk matrix. And then the risk rating guides decisions on which risks need to be addressed first. Qualitative risk techniques include brainstorming sessions, expert judgment, and risk questionnaires and risk workshops. Quantitative risk analysis, on the other hand, involves a more detailed numerical assessment of risk. It aims to quantify the potential impact of risk on project objectives in terms of cost, time, and other relevant metrics. With this technique, the analyst will gather historical data, expert opinions, and other relevant information to quantify the impact and probability of risk, create mathematical models or simulations to estimate the potential impact of risk on project outcome, assign numerical values to potential impact of risk, such as estimated cost impact or schedule delay based on the analysis, rank risk based on their calculated quantitative impact. Techniques include sensitivity analysis, decision trees, and simulation tools that provide numerical insights into the potential project outcomes. So, qualitative risk analysis is useful for early project stages, doing a quick assessments and projects that have limited resources for detailed analysis. And quantitative risk analysis is suitable for projects with significant financial or schedule implications where precise estimation is crucial. Qualitative risk analysis provides a qualitative understanding of the risks and prioritizes them based on expert judgments, while quantitative risk analysis offers a more detailed numerical assessment of risk using historical data and simulations. Both methods have their strengths and limitations, and they can actually be used individually or in combination to enhance the risk management process in IT project management. And the key there is that it's just something that needs to be done because a lot of organizations um, just fail to really do quality risk management when they implement these projects and it has dire effects. So I hope that that overview has been helpful. Um, the field of IT project management is vast, so it's difficult to really encompass so much in such a short amount of time. But I hope that those that deep dive into those few important topics has been helpful. And then I want to open up the floor to any questions.
Okay, Deltoria, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
If you could make only one recommendation for an organization looking to successfully implement a complex IT project, what would it be?
If I could only make one recommendation, it would actually be to hire someone because an organization that is going to be looking to implement a complex project is probably going to be allocating a considerable amount of resources, whether it be monetary, manpower, time, to this project. And so they're going to want to bring in somebody who has not only the technical expertise, but also all the other required soft skills to ensure that they're going to get the return that they're looking for on their investment. So, I definitely would say to hire a good project manager.
Okay, thank you.
Deltoria, this is Mo. I got a quick question for you. I know you talked about risk management, and you mentioned that risk management is so important to project management. And maybe just a few sentences, can you tell me why you think risk management is so important to project management?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest reasons is because there's so many failed projects. There's like a failed project graveyard, and a lot of times when we start to analyze where these projects went wrong, it's because of failed risk management, meaning that maybe the project started out with good intentions. There was some good planning done, but because of uncertainty, especially when it comes to IT projects, there were unforeseen circumstances that the project team just did not plan for. So I think that risk management, it has a mediating factor. It can help organizations to avoid having projects that end up not being completed successfully by identifying things that um, can be that will be risky. But then not only that, on the positive end, because we do have positive risk, it can also help an organization to take advantage of a positive risk that they didn't see coming.